It was a spring evening, the air scented with freshly cut grass and white orchids. In the red velvet-draped grand hall of the Harrington estate, crystal chandeliers cast a soft golden light over the marble floor, making it shimmer like falling stars. Wine glasses clinked gently, high heels tapped across polished oak, and in the midst of the violin's haunting melody stood a misplaced figure at the edge of the doorway. A thin, black boy wearing a frayed collar shirt, clutching a backpack with a torn strap. Jeremiah, 10 years old, the son of the janitor who cleaned the floors and lived temporarily in the estate's basement. He wasn't invited. He wasn't supposed to be here. Yet his eyes, clear and focused, didn't dart around with curiosity like a lost child in a strange land. His gaze locked on one thing in the entire lavish room, the chessboard. The East Room had been reserved for the exhibition match, a staple performance at every Harrington party. At the center stood a handcrafted walnut chess table, porcelain pieces trimmed in silver, set on doe violet velvet, all prepared for what was deemed a refined intellectual indulgence among the East Coast elite. The host of the evening, Lucinda Harrington, a white billionaire, sat on the far side of the board. Her silver curls were pinned like silk waves. Her emerald velvet gown clung elegantly to her tall frame, and her diamond ring flashed coldly each time she moved a piece. Lucinda was famous in global investment circles, but to chess players, she was known as the Queen of the Board, a nickname both reverent and wary. She had once defeated male grandmasters at the Chelsea Open, though she always insisted humbly, "Chess is just a pastime, like fox hunting or golf." But even a pastime should be done with skill. Tonight's guest of honor, a wealthy philanthropist, was about to sit for a friendly game before the main event. Just as Lucinda was about to invite her opponent to the board, her eyes caught a small figure by the door. Jeremiah, still standing there, unmoving like a shadow cast on polished glass. She squinted. "Well now, an audience member not on the guest list." The crowd began to notice. Someone chuckled. "The prodigy from the basement, huh?" A young woman muttered, "Probably here to steal dessert." Lucinda didn't laugh, but her lips curved ever so slightly. She tapped her fingers on the board, eyes gleaming with amusement, like spotting a stray mouse in a garden of rare orchids. "Come now, boy. Does the basement prodigy want to try a game?" The room burst into laughter. Everyone was expecting the same thing, a moment of humiliation for a lowly black child. They were already preparing their snide remarks. Jeremiah didn't laugh, didn't flinch. He simply stepped forward, bowed politely, not submissively, and sat down across from her. "What's your name?" Lucinda asked, tilting her head. "Jeremiah, ma'am. You know how to play?" He nodded. "Then let's play around, just for fun." "Yes, ma'am," he replied softly. Lucinda offered him the first move, half courtesy, half condescension. But the moment Jeremiah placed his pawn forward, with swift, precise motion, something in her expression shifted. Not because the move was unusual, but because of how quick and deliberate it was. She responded. The game began. 5 minutes in, the murmurs began to die down. 10 minutes. Wine glasses lowered. Laughter ceased. Lucinda began to frown. Every move Jeremiah made was calm, sharp and confident. Not like someone who'd memorized lines, but like someone who understood the story. When countered, he adjusted with precision, as if he'd seen this exact board before, and it was merely replaying itself now. At minute 15, Lucinda lost her rook. Her palms began to sweat. By minute 20, she was checkmated. Silence fell across the hall like a dropped curtain. Lucinda had lost. She slowly rose, her gaze stripped bare. The crowd buzzed in disbelief. Did someone coach him? Where was he looking? Was there an earpiece? Maybe it was just dumb luck? Someone forced a laugh. Those black kids are sly. A child like him playing chess like that. No way, it's clean. Lucinda said nothing, but her eyes stayed fixed on the boy's face. Jeremiah sat still, back straight, hands resting on the table. No smugness, no pride. He simply bowed slightly and said, "Thank you, ma'am, for letting me play." He hadn't cared that the whole setup had been designed to mock him, to turn him into the butt of a joke. He came, he played, and he left with something no one could take: dignity. Jeremiah lived with his mother, Loretta, in a basement room at the far end of a narrow hallway behind the kitchen, a place few in the Harrington mansion ever bothered to enter. The room had once been a storage closet, sunken below ground, with the damp smell of old pipes and only one dim, flickering yellow bulb that glowed like a dying firefly. Loretta was a black woman in her early 40s, thin, small-framed, her hair tied back, hands always in rubber gloves, from scrubbing toilets or rinsing sinks for the rich. She had worked there for 8 years, enduring orders from white servants hired through elite agencies, dressed in embroidered uniforms and given full authority to supervise off-staff janitors. Loretta, by every definition, was invisible in that house. And so was her son. Jeremiah attended public school during the day and spent his evenings helping his mother mop floors, wash laundry, and take out the trash. Sometimes he was called up to clean the dog kennels or scrub guest bathrooms. One servant once sneered, "Black, living in a basement. Maybe he was born to crawl under someone else's roof." Jeremiah never responded. He just lowered his head and did the work. And at night, when all the lights upstairs had gone out, he'd open an old wooden box, pull out a cheap plastic chess set, and quietly sketch out the day's games in a school notebook. On the wall of their room hung the only picture frame: a black man in midlife, with a strong chin, deep eyes, and a warm smile, holding a white chess piece in mid-attack. That was his father, Malik. Malik had been a self-taught chess coach, teaching kids in underfunded neighborhoods and occasionally offering online lessons to strangers who paid well. Despite his degree, he was never accepted into any professional training institutions. One academy once rejected him for not fitting the visual branding style. Jeremiah remembered vividly how his father would sit coughing behind the wooden desk, still teaching him openings and counterplays, even as heart failure made his breathing labored. Malik passed away when Jeremiah was just 8. Since then, chess had become the only thread that tethered Jeremiah to the father the world had too easily forgotten. Meanwhile, far above them, on the mansion's top floor, Lucinda Harrington, the billionaire mistress of the estate and one of the most powerful figures on the eastern seaboard, was renowned not just for her wealth, but for her skill at chess. Though never a professional, she had defeated several masters in private matches and elite events. In one interview, Lucinda once mentioned having an anonymous chess mentor, someone she never met in person, who taught her entirely online. She spoke of him with deep respect and credited him for much of the success. No one ever knew his name, but the reverence was clear. And then came that night, the game against Jeremiah that turned into a thorn in her pride. After losing the first match to Jeremiah, a poor black child in a frayed shirt, Lucinda couldn't let it go. She asked her staff to bring the score sheets. Then, with pen and paper, she personally wrote down each move from memory, searching for flaws, missteps, anything to prove it had been luck. There was nothing. She called Jeremiah back. In front of all the guests, Lucinda reset the board. "Play another round." Jeremiah said nothing and played. She lost again. "One more," she said tightly. Then a third game, a fourth, a fifth, and every time, Lucinda lost. Not because she underestimated him, but because every one of his moves was calm, sharp, and surgical, slicing straight through the thick skin of her pride. The guests, who had once scoffed, began to murmur. Must have memorized some chess book, probably just mimicking patterns like a parrot. A black kid that good? Weird times. He's gotta be cheating with some trickery, not real chess. But as the games continued, their voices faded. By the fifth match, no one said a word. Not because they respected him, but because they feared what it meant. That night, Lucinda sat alone in her study, the score sheets laid out. This time, she used a computer, the same kind grandmasters used to analyze games. She input every move from every match. The results shook her. No repeated sequences. No evidence of copying. Each move was an original response. Deeply strategic, precise, intuitive. This wasn't memorization. It was thinking. It was battle-hardened experience. It was skill. And it came from a boy she and everyone else had dismissed as beneath them. Lucinda clenched her fists. Shame crashed over her like an overturned chessboard in the middle of a gala. No one in her elite circle had ever defeated her this thoroughly, and she reacted the way powerful people often do when they can't stomach the truth. She accused Jeremiah of cheating. The next morning she summoned Loretta to the management office. Her voice was cold as frozen glass. "Last night, someone reported your son using an unknown device, possibly chess software, or a hidden earpiece. We have no proof, of course, but for safety reasons, I can't allow your family to stay." Loretta froze. "But there's nothing, ma'am. Jeremiah doesn't even own a phone. No need to explain." Lucinda turned away. "You'll leave today. I'll pay you in full." That afternoon, the sky turned gray. Mother and son wheeled a cracked plastic suitcase slowly out of the estate gate. Loretta bit her lip to hold back tears. Jeremiah never looked back. He kept walking, his small back straight as a pin, his hand clutching his notebook, where he'd recorded every game, every lesson his father ever gave. A child cast out because he was better than someone who couldn't accept losing. 3 days after evicting Jeremiah and his mother from the estate, Lucinda Harrington still hadn't slept through a single night. She had tried to forget, tried to bury herself in business schedules, gala dinners and conference calls with the investment board. But every time she lay down, the chess pieces returned. Especially the boy's eyes, deep, still, without a trace of blame. That gaze haunted her dreams, quiet and steady like a silent accusation no words could voice. And she couldn't bear it. On a Wednesday night she got in her car and drove out of her wealthy enclave, crossing into narrow, run-down streets, where crooked lamplight cast jagged shadows across cracked sidewalks. She parked at the end of a littered alley, where only stray cats and footsteps made the windows rattle. Lucinda wore a gray trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat. She carried a small handbag. She hadn't called ahead. No assistant, no entourage. She didn't want anyone to know she was in Brooklyn's poorest slums, the place Jeremiah and his mother now called home. The building was a dilapidated boarding house, patched with tin and wood, no visible address, just a crooked wooden sign that read faintly, "Long-term rooms, pay by the week." Lucinda walked up to door 4B, the one a tired-looking caretaker had pointed out. There was no doorbell. She knocked lightly. No response. The door was slightly ajar. She looked around. The whole block was silent. A few cats yawned lazily on a windowsill. In the distance, voices called back and forth near a corner food stand. Her hand, as if moved by something outside her will, gently pushed the door open. The room was small. Mold-stained walls. 2 fold-out beds placed side by side. A pile of folded blankets. A few worn clothes hanging behind the door. A tiny hot plate balanced on a plastic crate. No one was home. But what drew Lucinda's eyes was the rickety wooden desk by the window. On it sat a cheap plastic chess set, a few loose sheets of paper, and a brown leather notebook with worn corners. She stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. On the first page was a neat line in black ink. Each game of chess is a life. Each mistake, a heartbeat skip. Many each. She turned the page. Faded diagrams filled the paperboard layouts, attack sequences, annotated with unique symbols she had never seen anyone use, except her old mentor. The same writing style, the same tone, even the use of round and square brackets, exactly the same as the training notes she had once received via email. Her heart tightened. Lucinda sat down at the edge of the bed, holding the notebook as if it might explode. She flipped another page. When your opponent is stronger, don't attack. Make them believe they're stronger than they really are. a strategy line she had quoted herself in her own book, Memoirs from the Board. And back then, she had believed it came from a calm, white, European man, maybe living in Switzerland or Belgium. An intellectual, someone like her. Lucinda froze. Could it be? This boy's father was the very mentor who once taught her. The thought barely took shape before a voice behind her made her jump. "Why are you in my room?" She turned. Jeremiah stood at the door, wearing an old t-shirt, grocery bag in hand. His face was not surprised, not angry, just calm, as if he'd always known she would come back. Lucinda set the notebook down. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude, but..." She trailed off, pointing at the journal. "These notes, whose are they?" Jeremiah stepped forward, touching the notebook gently, like something sacred. "They belong to my father," he said softly. "Malik Hamilton." Lucinda clenched her hands. "Was he the one who used to teach me online?" Jeremiah answered, "I don't know for sure, but he taught chess online, just to earn a little extra when his health got worse. One day, a woman messaged him. She didn't know his name. She just called him teacher. She offered him a lot of money if he would give regular lessons. But he was already preparing for a hospital stay, so he had to turn her down." Lucinda couldn't lift her eyes. It felt like the floor beneath her had disappeared. "That woman was me," she whispered. "I never knew his name. I never asked. I assumed he was white." Jeremiah simply looked at her. No anger, no bitterness, just a voice, soft as cooled ashes. "No one mentioned my father in any club. No one put his name anywhere. After he died, no one asked about him. No one knew he existed. But I didn't forget." Lucinda froze. Her usual composure crumbled. Her voice cracked. "You're this good because of him?" Jeremiah looked at the chess set on the desk. A chipped queen lay off its square. He picked it up and gently placed it back where it belonged. "I play chess so I won't forget my father," he said, "because too many people forgot him far too easily." Lucinda said nothing more. She understood, and for the first time in her life, she knew what it truly meant to lose. Just 1 week after that meeting in the small Brooklyn apartment, Lucinda Harrington convened an unprecedented press conference, a gathering unlike anything the chess world or elite media had seen before. For the first time, she wasn't appearing to promote investments or expand her influence. She came to speak the truth. The conference took place at the Royal Chess Club, where she had once been crowned queen of the board for defeating 3 professional grandmasters in a row. Behind her on stage was a black and white photo, a black man smiling gently, holding a chess piece before a child. Lucinda stepped up to the podium. No script, no host. Her voice echoed into the quiet, like a pebble breaking the still surface of water. "I used to proudly say I was taught chess by an anonymous mentor, a person I never met, but who guided me through game after game. I always imagined him as a European intellectual, white, polished, maybe living in Switzerland or Norway, because that's the kind of mentor my world was trained to admire. But I was wrong." Murmurs stirred across the crowd. Journalists leaned in. Cameras zoomed close. "Last week I discovered the true identity of the man who shaped my game. His name was Malik Hamilton. A father, a husband, a chess coach forgotten by the world. He was a black man who once lived with his family beneath my estate. And worse, after his passing, I threw out his wife and son, because that boy beat me on a chessboard." The murmurs fell into stunned silence. Lucinda looked up. Her eyes no longer glowed with power, but with the fire of reckoning. "Today, I formally honor Malik Hamilton as one of the most influential minds in modern chess. Starting next year, the Outstanding Chess Educator Award will bear his name." She turned toward the front rows, and to the boy who made the final move in his father's place. "I offer a full, unconditional scholarship from the Harrington Foundation, along with direct mentorship toward becoming a professional grandmaster." Cameras flashing. In the front row, Jeremiah stood, the same quiet eyes, but this time with something deeper: recognition. He didn't speak, just bowed. Everything had already been said in his silence. 5 years later, the name Jeremiah Hamilton appeared on the international chess rankings. He became the youngest Black American to win the European Grand Prix, defeating top-ranked players from Russia, China, and France with a style both cold and precise, never flashy, the unmistakable imprint of his father. The media dubbed him the emotionless player, but Loretta, his mother, knew it wasn't a lack of emotion. It was emotion guarded so tightly no one could reach it. They now lived in a sunny house on the outskirts of Connecticut, modest and peaceful, with a small room dedicated to training neighborhood children in chess. Kids just like Jeremiah once was. At the Berlin Chess Masters during a championship press briefing, the host asked, "Jeremiah, who has had the greatest influence on your chess career?" He slowly brought the mic to his lips, gaze fixed, not on the audience, but the screen behind him, where his father's photo glowed quietly, smiling with a queen in hand. A man no one remembered, no degree, no title, no article ever written about him. But thanks to that final game, the world now sees him. He paused, drew in a breath, and added, this time as a son. My father. The room fell silent. Then applause erupted like thunder. Not for the championship title, but for a tribute spoken into a world that once turned away. Lucinda was there, in the audience, hair fully silver now, her steps slower, but her eyes brighter than ever. After the ceremony, Jeremiah approached her and extended his hand. Thank you, he said, soft but steady. Lucinda smiled and replied, no, I should thank you. To finish the game, that I was never brave enough to ask who started. At the far end of Berlin's tournament hall, where engraved plaques of chess legends hung, a new quote appeared etched in stainless steel beneath Jeremiah's portrait. Never dismiss the eyes of a child standing beneath the board. He may be playing on behalf of someone who never got the chance. Jeremiah Hamilton. Below it, someone placed a single, worn wooden queen, identical to the first piece Jeremiah ever held in that basement long ago. No one needed to retell the pain, but from that day forward, no one was allowed to forget. The story of Jeremiah Hamilton is more than a journey from the basement to the spotlight. It is a living testament to a truth long ignored. Talent knows no color, and a person's worth is not defined by where they come from, but by how they live and how deeply they love. Jeremiah didn't fight to win a chess match. He fought to preserve the memory of a father the world once chose to erase. A nameless coach, unseen on any stage, who planted resilience in his son. Like a quiet, strategic move, no one noticed, until it became victory. And Lucinda Harrington, once standing at the top, looking down, learned the most costly lesson of her life. Sometimes the only loss that matters is the one that makes you win back yourself. This story doesn't end with a trophy. It ends with recognition for those who had been buried beneath the dust of prejudice. So from now on, no one will dare dismiss the silent eyes, watching a chessboard from below.